While the world is happier when exes are on lockdown, the lovely and maverick elders of Hazyview Mansions, driven by Maggie and her 4 close friends, have their own ideas. Romance, old loves, individual, local and global issues drive the story of this important movement with sustained and gentle humor. Read this excerpt from Anne Schlebusch's book Bloomer and Maggie's tray arrived at 7 a.m. His stomach had just been moaning a little. Food was served throughout the day. It's never this glamorous when you lift the fancy cover and look underneath. She panicked for a moment because she didn't have a choice, but she calmed herself down, thinking it was okay. At least she didn't have to make weird piles of uneaten food. Eat or return to the sender. He vaguely tugged at the wrinkled leather flaps in the middle. Legacy of his greater days. From fat to meat. Maybe COVID will wipe the wings for me and I'll turn into a slender senior instead of a cute grandmother, courtesy no longer mattered. It's pretty liberating actually, he said loudly. He smiled broadly. She said it again. The first instruction to yourself was to head it, she. It was something he loved. Several of fingers were wrinkled from arthritis, cataract in eyes and a cataract had been straightened, knees were dangerous, back hurt after a while when he sat too still. His left ear was slightly deaf. His ankles were swollen, and there was sometimes a moment when he coughed and his bladder muscles were useless. But his brain was as sharp as it was sharp. This thing will be my saving grace, she gleamed as she gazed at her beloved world and her microscopic balcony. This COVID thing. No need to be polite. There's no need. A strange look crossed his face. If she wasn't such an old woman, you'd call her an insolent grin. You don't need to wear a goddamn bra, she shouted cheerfully, with crooked fingers and the necessary tug on her back, stripping off what she had just barely put on. No need to say, after you, in the dreaded elevator. She stuffed her bras and chic streetwear into a bag as she spoke. She took off her comfortable slippers and wore something rich and whimsical. The storm, muttered as she put on the flowery, zipperless, unironed trousers had mindlessly bought from that crazy Mauritius vacation. Pixie stroked her hair lovingly and gave it a spin. Mistake. She hit her knee. Bad idea. Day 2 has passed. Day 3 as well. Phone calls. Messages. Worries. Jokes. Statistics. The world swallowed the news. Strange doses. He had a strange craving for foods he could no longer buy, such as Marmite, applesauce, boudoir biscuits, pudding, all casual comforting foods from his childhood. How uncontrollable his appetite was now. As the days passed, as fiddled with his new phone and learned some tricks, found that was tired making lists of things to do, new ways thinking should adopt. Time to act, he said, lying down gratefully. Let's get started, he added, feeling a bit like Winnie-the-Pooh. She set her fear list aside and looked at the list of plans. Item 1 Move your body. Maggie's diary read, here's some of what happened in this, work on body, POA I couldn't find a free Pilates course on my new stylish phone, but I did find something nice for Parkinson's patients. Try to do it for about 5 minutes every 90. For example, leaning on the bench. Standing on one leg holding onto the back of a chair. Too bad about it, doing exercises to get rid of what's called upper pubic fat. Anything that starts with the words, lie down, is good news for me. It's like riding a bike while lying down. Slowly. Item 2 Pour off the excess clover. Maggie's greatest work was doing a massive cleanup. A few weeks later, her little kitchen was filled with everything. She had asked Kath to leave a pile of garbage bags at the door. Real garbage is put in bags for disposal. Things to hide are back in the cabinets. To be honest, he couldn't stand this more than a few pieces a day. But some of it he really liked and sat sniffing while reading old love letters or looking at faded photos. She would sometimes fall asleep while was busy, and when she woke up, would find, for example, her grandmother's old glass beads resting on her chest, or worse, herself on them. He was a constant commenter throughout most of his time. Some of it was in his head. Many came out loud. Occasionally he would scold himself by saying things like, "Oh, come on now, shut up for a while, you old lad." Maggie has talked a lot about the universe these days. The universe has spoken, it would have said so when she irreversibly ripped up an old birthday card from a lost love or little twin. Looking from his balcony at idiots breaking the quarantine rules, universe seems determined to self-destruct. The universe obviously wants to get rid of us in a bloody way. It was its hottest topic, as statistics caused besieged leaders to speak typically more optimistic than mournful when they pointed out that those being destroyed were the oldest and most vulnerable. "It's like they're shrugging us off," she roared several times a day. What the area authority afforded him due to his COVID-19 confinement and advanced age, he felt completely free shout and perform whenever he wanted. When Trump said "trouble" with his stupid head tilted, mispronouncing the word, he stopped his undertone comment and shouted at him. She often laughed at herself as she sat in her COVID-preferred wardrobe of colorful clothing, often thoughtless purchases, or classic favorites. She envisioned a divinely knitted teapot warm and adopted it as a flamboyant hat she draped over her choppy pixie cut, nothing like Judi Dench's but still adorning it with delight. He swung his socks and sweatpants legs under layers of blankets and laughed at the absurdity of all this. About 30 days later, Maggie found herself translating an old top copy package. She knew she was pushing something big but what was it again? She looked inside and pulled out a wad of pages. "Oh yes," she grumbled as she remembered. It was the printout of his 7-month diary. She looked at the date on the top page. 2002, that year was a big year for him. He had literally even changed his name. The annual plan was, take charge of your life, and what more powerful way to do it than get your own birth name back? He laughed. To her children, who were quite reproachful when she announced that she was planning to go back to her maiden name, it seemed like an unnecessary show-off. She remembered very well how contemptuously she had spat out the words maiden name as she spoke to them. That word and all the trappings that go with it are so anachronistic. Married name was an identity that no longer worked for him. He was feeling strong with his birth name and taking it back, low as he used to be and now will be again, to hell with all the paperwork. Worth it. No regrets, he said loudly now. That year, again, Maggie became low. She felt like returning to her lovely skin. She had enjoyed it. She literally rolled off her tongue. She has said this often, For many years she had just become Maggie when she met new people. She was Maggie DeLu, now a character. She wrote subtitle of the diary, Eating Bads and Blues. She wondered if she could stand the embarrassment of reading it all. He was 52 years old and was experiencing a second wave of midlife crisis. Maybe, rather, a kind of menopausal panic, when you think about it. Now is the bloody time. He grabbed a cup of coffee, found glasses, wrapped his kneecap around legs, and began to read. Dear Mama like Maggie, the protagonist of her exciting debut novel for adults, Anne Schlebusch is 70 years old. She has written 3 young adult novels, with one of them co-winning the Young Africa Award in 1995. In 2020, his short story was longlisted in the Quella Corona contest. Bloomer is published by Majoji Books and can be found in bookstores nationwide. Sold in a 320.